In December of 2021, esteemed Pennsylvania dentist Dr. Lawrence Rudolph was arrested and charged with the mysterious passing of his wife. Authorities believe Dr. Lawrence took her life to cash in on a hefty life insurance policy which amounted to $4.8 million. During their investigation, police uncovered some bizarre details about Lawrence's life that only made his case look worse than it already was. On paper, Dr. Lawrence is a successful dentist from Pennsylvania. His life seemed great. However, those who knew the Rudolphs knew there was much more going on behind the bright white smiles, particularly Lawrence's relationship with his wife, Bianca. They'd been married for 34 years up until her passing in 2016. The couple met while Lawrence was in school in Pittsburgh. They fell in love and got married in 1982. Lawrence and Bianca spent those 34 years building a family and a successful dental practice. They had 2 beautiful children and 2 homes, one in Pittsburgh and one in Arizona. By all appearances, the Rudolphs were living the good life, ripe with money, family, and prestige. In reality, the couple was just going through the motions. But why stay together for that long? Well, according to their friends, Lawrence and Bianca had their unique reasons. Lawrence, they say, was always obsessed with money. He'd built a business using his own time, talents, and money in his mind. The company and any profits earned from it were his by right. In the event of a divorce, Lawrence knew that he would lose at least half of his assets and cash. The breadwinning spouse almost always has to support the spouse who makes less money, especially if that spouse doesn't work at all. In other words, Lawrence wouldn't divorce Bianca because he didn't want to lose his money. On the other hand, Bianca had a more righteous reason for not divorcing Lawrence. She was Catholic. Traditionally, Catholics do not acknowledge a legal divorce. According to Catholic doctrine, the marriage is still active in the eyes of God, meaning that Bianca, a devout Catholic, would have been breaking religious law if she'd entered into another relationship after divorcing Larry. Entering into a relationship with someone outside the church or remarrying outside the church is prohibited, potentially resulting in excommunication. For a devout Catholic, excommunication is one of the worst things that can happen. For that reason, Bianca wanted to avoid breaking the rules at all costs, even if that meant staying married to Larry in a loveless marriage. That was their relationship, according to friends. And the division only got worse from there. Since he wasn't getting much love and attention from Bianca, and vice versa, Lawrence started seeing several mistresses on the side. Clearly, he didn't adhere to the same religious rule. Authorities now believe that one of those mistresses is responsible for coaxing Lawrence to take Bianca's life. Every doctor's office needs receptionists and medical assistants. Lawrence's Pennsylvania dentist's office was no exception. Dr. Lawrence owned 3 Rivers Dental Group, which served as the parent company to 5 smaller dentist offices all around Pennsylvania. His main office was in Greensburg, a town outside of Pittsburgh. Needless to say, Lawrence was a successful dentist and an economic pillar of his community. CBS News estimates that Dr. Lawrence was worth around $28 million. Naturally, many young dental professionals in the Pittsburgh area wanted to work for Dr. Lawrence. One employee, a manager named Lori Milleron, caught Lawrence's attention. Lori started working at 3 Rivers Group in the early 2000s. At some point, over the next 20 years, Lori and Lawrence engaged in a passionate love affair. The affair, however, morphed into a more serious relationship as the years went by, until Lori decided she was tired of playing second fiddle. After being with Dr. Lawrence for so long, Lori eventually wanted more. She felt like she was the true woman in Lawrence's life and shouldn't have to play second best to a wife he didn't even care about. So, she gave Lawrence a 1-year ultimatum to leave Bianca and sell his dental businesses. Lawrence gave in to the ultimatum, but still faced a major problem. How would he leave Bianca without divorcing her and losing half of his money? According to authorities, Lawrence decided the best option was to take Bianca out and not on a date. Though he still needed a way to get rid of her without getting caught, leading the wealthy dentist to devise a plan involving their favorite hobby, big game hunting. Lawrence was arguably more enthusiastic about hunting than dentistry. And, though she didn't grow up hunting, Bianca was just as passionate about tracking down and shooting big game animals. Their Facebook pages are filled with pictures of Lawrence and Bianca posing next to a large exotic animal they shot with guns in hand. But they did much more than just participate in the high-end sport. Lawrence, ever the entrepreneur, was the former president of Safari Club International after working as the chief's communication officer. Lawrence was also the president of the Weatherby Foundation, an international hunting organization. So it was normal and not at all suspicious when he and Bianca flew to Zambia for a hunting trip to shoot a leopard. Lawrence didn't do much hunting during the Zambia trip, oddly enough. The goal of the trip was for Bianca to shoot a leopard, so Lawrence stayed back while his wife pursued the big exotic cat. The hunt began on September 27th, and even after 2 weeks of pursuit, the couple still couldn't track the leopard down. Instead, Bianca hunted several other animals. On the morning of October 11th, the couple decided it was time to leave camp. Around 5:30 a.m., their hunting guide heard a loud boom while eating in the nearby mess hall. And moments later, Lawrence screamed for help. He rushed towards their cabin and found Bianca lying on the floor. She'd suffered a violent wound, and an empty shell was on the ground next to her. The police arrived and interviewed Lawrence, who gave them his account of the accident. Lawrence told Zambian police that he was in the shower when he heard the gunshot. He then jumped out, did everything he could, called for help when his efforts failed. He told investigators that she must have accidentally discharged the weapon while putting it back in the case. The Zambian authorities allowed Lawrence to leave after taking care of his wife's funeral arrangements. When he got home, however, things got weird. When you're the breadwinner of the family, it's common to take out a life insurance policy in case something happens. That way, your family and loved ones are cared for financially. Bianca was not the breadwinner in her and Lawrence's marriage. It made no sense to take out a policy on her. However, records show that Lawrence took out not one, not two, but 7 policies on his wife. The total insurance payout, as mentioned earlier, $4.8 million. Apparently, Lawrence felt he shouldn't let a money-making opportunity slide by. Whether planned or not, the slick move signaled suspicion to outside observers, aka official investigators, as did Lawrence's bizarre activity after Bianca's funeral. The police were already looking into Dr. Lawrence long before Bianca's funeral. After the accident, Lawrence requested for Bianca's body to be cremated as soon as the funeral was over. His request was eventually granted. Meanwhile, Lawrence's 2 children were trying to call him. According to records, he ignored them for days. They didn't even know what happened until a week after the fact. Perhaps to throw the police off his trail, Lawrence invested some serious cash into Bianca's funeral. From the outside looking in, he did everything he could to give his wife a proper send-off. Then he dropped the ball. The day after the funeral, Lawrence hopped on a flight to Las Vegas. Initially, he'd booked a flight for Lori to take her from Pittsburgh to Phoenix. However, Lori's flight got canceled the same day, so he flew a different woman out to Vegas and met up with her instead. Lawrence says he was publicly declaring his relationship with this woman, but investigators were still skeptical. Consular chief from the U.S. Embassy felt uneasy about Lawrence's story from the get-go. The chief, a former Marine, examined Bianca's body at the funeral home, focusing on her chest wounds. He determined that the shot was fired from at least 6.5 feet, if not 8 feet away. The discovery blew a massive hole in Lawrence's story. According to him, Bianca hit point blank. However, judging by the spread of the wounds, the chief determined that was impossible. Knowing the body would soon be cremated, the chief snapped pictures of Bianca's chest wounds and left the funeral home. Later on, Lawrence found out the chief had taken pictures of his wife's body without permission. He was furious. A different investigation conducted by a Colorado medical examiner concluded that, in their opinion, Lawrence's story was impossible. Lawrence claimed that the trigger was pulled from inside the case, or Bianca pulled the trigger accidentally with her hands. The examiner explained that the inside of the case couldn't have pulled the trigger, and Bianca's arms were too short to reach the trigger while pointing the muzzle at her chest. For example, Bianca was only 5'4", and the brown 12-gauge shotgun was at least 28 inches long. The FBI conducted a reach test during their investigation and concluded that Bianca couldn't have reached the trigger even if she'd wanted to. Federal investigators also talked to people that knew the Rudolphs. Lawrence and Bianca's friends told authorities all they knew, giving Lawrence a motive, was money. Their 5-year investigation yielded other pieces of evidence, including witness testimonies of people who were in Zambia at the time of Bianca's accident. One key witness was the hunting guide's wife. She told federal investigators she saw Lawrence bribe Zambian officials into cremating Bianca's body as quickly as possible. Witnesses were even more puzzled by Lawrence refusing to answer his children's phone calls. Lawrence told the consulate chief that the kids calling him were from his previous marriage and not related to Bianca by blood. A crappy excuse, but one that would ultimately hold up in court. The FBI also talked to a former Three Rivers employee who told them about the ultimatum and Lawrence's affair with Lori. Between the reach test, the witness testimony, and the life insurance claims, the feds had enough evidence to finally slap the cuffs on the evil dentist. The FBI chose to arrest Lawrence in Cabo, Mexico for legal reasons. They had plenty of evidence, but it was circumstantial. Federal authorities apprehended Lawrence in Mexico, where the allegedly self-made widower was vacationing for the winter. Agents sent Lawrence back to the United States on charges of capital crimes and wire fraud, though proving he did either will be tough due to the lack of concrete evidence. Lawrence's attorney has called the case a witch hunt, arguing that Bianca's passing was a terrible accident and that both the insurance companies and investigators agreed with Lawrence's story. His trial started in February of 2022. While Lawrence is in jail awaiting trial, who's running his businesses? Three Rivers has completely erased Dr. Lawrence from the company website. As of May 2022, the operation is headed by Dr. Anna Rudolph, Lawrence and Bianca's daughter, who appears to have taken over the business from her father, according to the company's website. That, or she's a supermodel posing as a dentist. The negative publicity stemming from the Fed's accusations has tarnished Lawrence's reputation, possibly for the rest of his life. He may win his trial in court, but he's certainly lost in the court of public opinion. Click here to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section, what's the weirdest thing you've ever found out about someone you worked with?